An anthropologist proposed a game to children of an African tribe. He put a basket of fruit near a tree and told the children that the first one to reach the fruit would win them all. When he told them to run, they all took each other's hands and ran together, then sat together enjoying the fruit. When asked why they ran like that, they said Ubuntu. How can one of us be happy if all the others are sad? Ubuntu is a philosophy of African tribes that can be summed up as I am because we are. Working with communities and schools to improve the lives of all children.
Welcome to Lunch Bunch. My name is Frederick Nolan, a Board of Directors member for Parents for Public Schools of Jackson. I'm delighted to welcome you all this morning. Lunch Bunch community forums are held at 11:45 on the first Wednesday of the months of September through May, except for the month of January. We invite you to join us and bring your friends. Please make sure we have your email address. We will send you notices of our monthly forums and periodic emails about topics of interest. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Ask for More Jackson, also known as Parents for Public Schools of Jackson, the organization was founded here in Jackson in 1989. Our work centers around supporting parents as partners with the school in the education of their children, ensuring that all children have access to quality teaching and learning, and engaging the public in active support of public schools. PPSJ has adopted a philosophy from Africa called Ubuntu. At its core, Ubuntu is described as I am because we are. We're delighted to have with us Dr. Robert Blaine. Dr. Blaine serves as the Chief Academic Officer for the City of Jackson. In his role as CAO, Dr. Blaine manages an organization of over 2,200 employees and a budget in excess of $350 million. Wow. He also represents the city on the Better Together Commission. He has arrived at this position through a background in academic administration. Dr. Blaine has long been interested in the intersection between leadership, art, teaching, and technology. His role as conductor of Tougaloo College's Connections and Jackson State University's Cyber Learning Initiatives provided direction for the development of 21st century learning environments for students and faculty. Dr. Blaine holds a bachelor's degree from the Jacobs School of Music at Indiana University, a master's degree from the Catholic University of America, and a doctorate from the Eastman School of Music. Dr. Blaine is an Apple Distinguished Educator, TEDx presenter, and an endorsing artist of the C.G. Con Company. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Blaine.
It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I want to thank Carolyn for the invitation to share with you and ask for more Jackson. I always get the question, how does a musician end up doing this work, right? I'm actually trained as a conductor, as an orchestra conductor. One of the great things about conducting orchestras is that you're in charge of an organization of experts. Everybody in front of you is an expert in what they do. But you have to find a way to be able to bring all these experts together under a unified vision. I think it's an apt kind of connection with administration, because this idea of being able to lead through demonstrating and to be able to give a vision that people can understand, can work together to achieve, is really, for me, the biggest connection between the music world and the world of administration. And so, coming into office with the mayor about 5 months ago, we started to talk about a vision for Jackson. And the mayor articulated what he called a new economic model. His idea is that there are economic models, specifically in Jackson, that are models that are based on humiliation. And when you look around communities and you see examples of blight and high crime and poor educational outcomes, these are all economic models that are based on humiliation of communities. And what the mayor said was that he wanted to focus on a new economic model that's focused on the inherent dignity of every citizen of Jackson, what he calls a dignity economy. And so we've actually broken this dignity economy down into 5 large goals. They start with healthy citizens, safe and affordable communities, a thriving educational system, and he talks about this P20, from preschool through the doctorate, a city with a growing tax base and occupational opportunities, and finally, a city that's open and welcoming to visitors. So it moves from the very micro, with the health of each individual citizen, to the very macro, with an entire city that's open and welcoming to visitors. If you notice, the third, the kind of the pivot point of these 5 goals, is a thriving educational system. The mayor really feels that this becomes the foundation of this economy based on human dignity. You can't have an economy on human dignity when we have challenges with our educational system. And so about 4 months ago, the state superintendent of the school system for the School Board of Education showed up in our office and dropped a 700-page report in the middle of our conference table, and essentially said that our school district was failing and that she was here to declare a state of emergency and take over our school system. And so we were very quiet in that meeting. We listened to a lot of what the superintendent had to say. And then after she left, we huddled as a team and we said, how can we control our own school system? How can we maintain local control of what we're doing? Because the foundation of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to build is all accomplished through a strong and robust educational system. We actually asked for a meeting with the governor, and the mayor and the governor sat down, and the mayor expressed his view that he wanted to try and find a third option. There were 2 options that were on the table: either sign or don't sign the emergency declaration. And so the mayor and the governor agreed that there needed to be a third option. Essentially, the plan was to be able to construct an advisory board that would be advisory to the JPS board and would report directly to the mayor and the governor. We met with many, many, many constituents around the city, everyone from local philanthropy to local governmental organizations, the JPS, the teachers union, many, many different stakeholders, and put together a plan that we could present to the governor. And we sat down with him, and we sat down with his educational staff. One of the amazing things was that we were able to actually partner through the Kellogg organization, the Kellogg Foundation, because our plan was all organizational. There was really no dollars behind it. We really needed someone to step up to the plate that actually had some dollars behind them that would say they would support what we were trying to do. And so the 3 worked together, the mayor's office, the governor's office, the Kellogg Foundation, and devised what we called the Better Together Commission. And the idea of Better Together is that this is a commission of 15 board members that is really about what this third option is. And the third option is that we work better when we work together. When we are pulled apart and we are essentially fighting against each other, we're pulling in different directions. And so the goal was to really assemble a group together so that we could all work together in a common goal to move in the same direction. Essentially, this commission was charged with 2 responsibilities. First is democratic visioning. And this is something that the mayor is very, very, very supportive of. And it's something that we are looking to instill in everything that we do in city government, which is really bringing the voice of the community into the decision-making process. And so this idea of democratic visioning is really trying to bring together a synthesized vision of what a transformed school district will look like. And so We're achieving that through these sets of conversations that we're having around the city. And there are 3 rounds of these kinds of conversations. The first round of these conversations actually begins December 11th. We have conversations that are organized in each ward of the city. This is more of a general conversation. Constituents are asked to come and actually present ideas around challenges and aspirations for the school district, so that we have a contextual kind of discussion about where we are currently, but also a vision of where we want to go. The second round will actually happen in January. The second round is all about organized groups. So these are focus groups that are looking at individual issues happening all throughout JPS. They can be represented by associations that are within Jackson Public Schools, neighborhood associations, concerned community groups, any group. And the goal is that we have these focus groups to begin to start to focus on specific issues that are happening within the school district. And the final stage is actually a door-knocking campaign where we will actually knock on 57,000 doors in the city of Jackson in order to get the input of every single household, so that we get an informed community decision-making that's really about creating an aspirational vision for our public school system. Concurrently with that process, we're creating a request for proposals for a third party to come out and to do an assessment of JPS, to look at where we are currently, and then to bring together this aspirational vision of where we want to go. The process that we will use to move from our current state to this aspirational vision is what this third party is tasked with creating, this execution plan around this. And then the final stage is that execution plan will be co-created with the Better Together Commission, the JPS board, and the community. And so the goal is that we all come together around this plan, and then we task the new JPS board with executing around that strategy. The Kellogg Foundation has actually done work similar to this in another community. They did some work like this in Battle Creek, Michigan. It wasn't exactly the same context. They weren't under the imminent threat of a state takeover, but it was the same visioning process and the same strategy around trying to move a school district forward. In that work, there was about $56 million, between $51 and $56 million that was brought in from the philanthropic world. We have actually had national philanthropies that have come from all over the country that have all said that they are willing to come and support JPS. Philanthropies ranging from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Stuart Mark Foundation, the Mark Zuckerberg Foundation, Babcock Foundation, there's a list of them. Resources. Personally, I don't think that resources are going to be the problem. I think executing around a plan is going to be our greatest challenge. And that execution really happens not just from JPS, but it comes from the entire community wrapping our arms around our school district and everyone playing a role, everyone playing a positive role in a communal vision of where we're going. The challenge that we've had historically is that we've worked in pockets. And so this kind of disjointed work creates small progress and incremental progress in small pockets. But what we really need to do, because we have so many examples of excellence in our school district, and then we have examples of real challenges and real need. And so that happens when we're able to push in one direction and then another pocket gets left behind. And so we really have to wrap our arms around the entire school district and move in a common direction together. That only happens through community visioning. Even in the best cases of state takeovers, and when we look all across the nation, and you see examples of takeovers that have happened from the state, when it has worked at its optimum, the state has come in, taken over a school or a district, there's been transformation there, the state pulls out, the locals take over, the local people had no control over the visioning process, no control over the implementation, and what happens? It reverts right back to where it was. And so if we're going to create something that's sustainable, we have to create it in community. We have to create it with the community, and we all have to come together around a vision that we can sustain as a community together. None of this happened overnight. None of this is going to be fixed overnight. We are on the first step of a very, very long journey. But it's a journey that we have to take together. As you heard, I'm a musician, and so my last year finishing my doctorate, we were in Rochester, New York. I promised my wife that I was going to finish this degree in 6 semesters, and it was not going to take me a second longer. So I said, baby, when I finish this degree, I am taking you on a European vacation. And she looks at me and she says, mm-hmm. So I got to the end of the year. We had just finished graduation, and I said, okay, pack your bags. We're getting ready to go. So she starts packing her bags, but she's packing jeans, tennis shoes, and I was like, baby, you can't dress like that. We're going to Paris. You can't look like that. She was like, you don't know nothing. I said, you cannot go to Paris looking like that. We went out, and we bought a whole new wardrobe. She got to Paris. We were sitting on the Champs-Élysées, and people were asking her for directions. She looked so good. The moral of the story is that when you get ready to take a journey, you can't leave with your old stuff. You've got to already put yourself in the new place. We have to create a new vision. What do our students need to be able to compete in the new world of the 21st century? How do we envision a process where our children are full stakeholders in that future, and where our children can not only be a part of, but actually co-create that future?
Related to this journey we talked about and how we reimagine our schools, because we really do use that. In terms of the people bringing that reimagination of what our schools might look like and how they might operate to the voices of the people is a real challenge. So I'd like to know what your thoughts are about that. The other thing is the resources. Resources can be a double-edged sword. I mean, when you look at the millions of dollars that were funneled into Newark public schools, and the fact that that effort did not help all children in that community. How is the commission prepared to deal with those two issues?
So I think equity is a primary concern. There have often been reform attempts that have not been equitable distribution of interventions. I think that place really matters. A lot of times, interventions are brought in, and they are brought in as template work, right? So you bring in a template and you lay it on top of someplace else. But if you bring in a template and the form that's underneath of it is never the same, then the template doesn't make any sense, right? And so place-based work is really important. And so how do we truly understand what's happening with our children? How do we understand what's happening in our communities? How do we build processes that take the realizations that schools exist within communities, and that children are a result of communities, and they bring all of that into the school with them? And so interventions that actually focus on the whole child and the whole community I think, are ways that we can focus using resources in order to be able to be specific to Jackson. What we've looked at is a philanthropy stack. And so how do we actually begin to follow the journey of a child, literally from birth through 20, right? So how do we take that all the way through the doctorate? We have to be able to intervene at various points, at these critical spaces, and being cognitive that children are growing brains that live in communities that have all kinds of external effects. And so how do we begin to take resources and actually use resources the way that we know that children develop, and what are the best interventions for the ways that brains work? And if we can do that, I think that we can work in community, and we can do this dual work of growing community and growing schools simultaneously.
So my question centered around how teachers and parents are being pulled into this process. And then how will what the commission plans to do how will it look in classrooms?
The commission is intentionally comprised of parents, teachers, philanthropic organizations, the business community. It has an intentional composition to try and represent all of the various constituents that need to be at the table. This vision of where we're going, which is all futuristic, right? But we have children that are in the seats right now. And so we've been talking about we have to also have a right now plan, right? So how are we going to be able to move the needle for children that are in the seats right now? We had a great meeting, the Commission of Great Schools. They're actually bringing together a study looking at the current state of JPS and what interventions might be effective. We are bringing in expertise from within and from without, both to be able to talk about how do we move the needle for children that are in the seats right now. As you know, as you have probably heard, we're not out of the woods yet. Right? So the state superintendent is still talking about the achievement school district, even though it's not even a thing yet. It hasn't been funded, it doesn't have a real shape, they're still putting the pieces together, but they already want to absorb us into it. We need to move the needle in the short term, show short-term results. Now, one of the things that's really challenging is that it's hard to show huge progress in a short amount of time. And everybody wants that silver bullet that you can throw out there where suddenly hey, everything's fixed and we've only been at this for 2 months. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. But that we can focus specifically on our schools that are failing, right, our D and F schools, and look at interventions that we can place there to be able to move the needle on those schools so that we can get them out of the failing category. We've got a midterm that we have to think about, which is really kind of what happens next school year and what does that look like. And then we have the long-term plan, which is really this kind of big visioning process, what a transformational school district looks like. So this three-step process talks about what are we doing immediately, how are we going to move the needle right now, how are we going to focus on next year and be able to push things forward, and then how do we create this transformational vision and all walk on that journey together.
One of the things that I wanted to ask about, and you talking about the right now, the present. I'm a parent that visits the school a lot. I go in the classroom and I sit a lot at my grandchild's school. And what I see there's a need for is a really strong working relation between teachers, students, and parents. I believe that if we have more information from the classroom, like syllabus, show us what you're working on, what at home, what do I need to do? So I believe if there's more communication between teachers and parents to be able to help the student, because like I said, that is a very serious gap, and you can see it throughout JPS with your F schools.
There's a very large percentage of early service teachers in JPS. These are teachers with 0 to 3 years of experience. Professional development is incredibly important when you have early service teachers, and to be able to have professional development that happens cyclically, that's not just one time and then you let them go. These kinds of techniques to be able to have real dialogue between teachers and parents and to be able to share information in a timely fashion, to have practice and work sessions that they send home with clear instructions of how skills are supposed to be worked on. Those are the pieces that get reinforced through professional development. One of the things that we've been talking about with this Right Now plan is trying to focus on those kinds of professional developments that will reap benefits in the short term.
I'm interested to know how you would determine where the focus groups will be had.
One of the things that we've been talking about is actually a round of funding for the focus groups. We're looking at being able to actually fund groups to be able to do this focus work together. We'd like to be able to have focus groups around parent groups, teacher groups, administration groups, staff groups in JPS, community organizations. We're actually building our website right now. I believe the website will be bettertogether.ms.gov, and actually we'll be posting information there specifically about where we're moving with, for example, listening rounds 2 and listening rounds 3. These focus groups are a part of those second listening rounds, and then the third listening rounds are focused on this door knock campaigns. And one of the things that I neglected to mention is that the voice of students is incredibly important in this process. One of the things that the commission said was we needed to make sure that the RFP was more student-centered. And so the very first line is that we are looking for a student-centered organization to evaluate an urban school district. And so the whole idea of being able to focus on Jackson and the way that our school district works and focus on our students, not some 50% mean group that we would find nationally, but what is really happening here in Jackson. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all also for being such a wonderful, engaged audience. And please join us for our next Lunch Bunch on February 7th, 2018. So I guess I'll see you next year. Until then, please follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and check out our website for updates, the good news coming out of our schools and community.